Welcome to Optimize My Life, the ultimate radio show where we unlock the secrets to living our best lives. Now, before we dive into this exciting journey of self-improvement and empowerment, I want to take a moment to thank our incredible sponsor, the Hope Collection, for making this show possible. Their unwavering commitment to spreading hope and positivity in our lives is truly remarkable. We believe in the power of interaction, so we want you to be a part of this incredible journey. Call in, write to us, or connect on social media. We'd love to hear your questions, experiences, and challenges. Together, we'll create a thriving community of like-minded individuals, supporting each other to thrive and shine.
Hello?
Okay, now can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm having technical difficulties. Electronics are great when they work, suck when they don't.
That's all good. I'm here. Happy to be here.
Oh, it's an honor for you to be here, to have you here. I'm having it's Monday. So welcome to Hometown Heroes. It's all about highlighting individuals and organizations that are doing a step beyond to make the world a better place. From helping businesses grow to just figuring out, transition in life to non-for-profit organizations. Whoever you are, whatever you do, we are here to highlight you and what you do. So I want to welcome my guest today, Chris Burns. How are you?
I am doing great, always great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I was looking at some of your stuff and your profiles, and, you got your hand in a lot of little pockets.
I get that a lot. I sure do.
Now, I don't feel bad when, you look at me and I'm, doing a million different things. I'm not the only one.
You are not. No, it's fun. It's fun to be busy and have a lot of different stuff going on, isn't it?
So let's function better when we have more going on.
I think I do.
What I love about what you do is you actually empower business owners to be a leader. And, you're on the platform Alignable, and I'm on there too, and I do things. So many of these small businesses are listening to marketers that take a 5-minute course and being told you need the perfect elevator pitch, you need the perfect this, the perfect that, you need to, show up on camera looking like you're on Wall Street. And when you go into these networking groups, these businesses who created these babies, I always call your business your baby, they don't know how to talk about what they do because they've been so coached on scripts that they can't explain anything off the cuff.
Oh, I've seen that before. And I'll tell you, when it comes to video, what's really interesting is that there's a camp of people who think that their videos should be scripted. And way back when I worked in the agency world, I remember, we were coaching people who were new to this, and a lot of people said, well, I need a script, I need this, I need that. And what I finally realized was that people who use a script, it sounds very rehearsed, very robotic, and even if you're not great, even if you're not a great public speaker or you're nervous on camera, I think the best thing you can do is just show up and be your authentic self. Embrace your imperfections, your stutter, your enunciation. People want the real you, not the fake you. And I think the more authentic and real you can be, the more business you're going to receive as kind of a byproduct. And so I think it's really important to, like you said, you've got to get in front of the camera because video is so important, but you don't have to be perfect. In fact, I would argue nobody expects perfect because perfect doesn't exist. Just be yourself. As easy as that is for me to say, I know it's not as easy for everyone, but the only way you're going to get better is by having more at-bats and more practice.
Well, I'm like that. I suck at videos. I'm great at radio. I'm great at talking. I'm great in meetings and networking. For me, it's the talking to I can't get over the concept that I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking to an audience. I don't see them. So I feel like I'm talking to myself. And so what I've done to help make it easier is, I come up with a disclaimer. I'm a mom of 2 special needs kids. I work at home. My life is chaos. I enjoy the chaos because that means my kids are thinking for themselves and not robotic. And this is as good as you're going to get. When I do live videos, I don't do recorded videos because then I'm not sitting here wondering and sitting here editing. Because even worse than having the robotic video is the over-edited videos. The filters that make you look like you're, a beauty queen or, the perfect person, and then the script to go with it. It's a Hollywood production that doesn't exist. And when people meet you, they think you're fake because your video don't match you.
Yeah, I've seen that happen over and over and over again. And guess what? If you look at the most popular types of content right now on platforms like, TikTok obviously is a big one, and YouTube, no doubt. Usually the best performing content right now is live video. And the reason why it's popular there, it's popular on Facebook, it's popular on YouTube, is because it's more engaging, it's more interactive. And I would argue it's a lot less boring because you don't know. People, as much as polished video can be, an over-edited video can be really good for a website because you're making a first impression when you're trying to sell someone or introduce them to your brand. If we're talking about everyday content for social media, we really want the raw, unedited or less edited, not overly produced, but what I call casual content. So if it's something you shot on your cell phone, maybe a ring light, sure. Maybe a secondary microphone, sure. But it doesn't have to be overly produced. And I would argue people don't want that. And if you look at what's trending on almost any single social media platform right now, it's the vertical video, or as we call 9:16 aspect ratio. That's a reel, a TikTok, a short, etc., and live video. And the reason being is that that's what's entertaining, that's what's engaging, that's what's interesting. And guess what? If that's what people want, why aren't we giving it to them? And so many people aren't. They're not even producing video of any kind, let alone vertical video. But guess what? The people want it and the platforms want it. And if you give them what they want, the platforms and the people, the users, you're going to be rewarded for it. And so that's my big ploy to get on the vertical video and the video train just in general.
No. One of the big things you do is you have a transformation program to help people, small businesses, get their name out there. How would you help, let's say, coaches, for instance, when there's a dime a dozen, to be able to get your name out there over someone else?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm going to take it kind of 2 different angles because I have a marketing business and a sales and leadership business. I think first, when we're talking to businesses of any kind, specifically small businesses, solopreneurs, coaches, etc., is I will ask them usually one of the first questions, what is it you want? And you could answer that from a personal standpoint, professional standpoint, anything in between. And a lot of times, even people who I know who are successful, they don't really have an answer. I have a gentleman that I worked with recently. He's got a podcast. He makes like $750,000 off of his production of his show, which is wildly successful in my opinion. But he knows that there's this next level that he's hit what we would call a glass ceiling. And I said, hey, what do you want? And he just stared around the room and kind of looked at the floor, looked at the ceiling, and if it was a 25-second response, delayed response, it felt like 3 minutes. And he just starts naming things. And I said, you didn't have that answer for me. It looks and sounds like you're making this up. And he's like, well, no. And then he admitted that he was. And so I said, look, you need to get crystal clear with what you want to achieve this calendar year. Because as entrepreneurs, you get this as well as I do. I may be doing something totally different in 9 months. So let's just focus on the now, like this, what's left of this year. And so if you can't answer that, it's going to be really hard for you to determine, well, how do I get better at marketing? Or how do I stand out? How do I get more sales? You have to know what you're after to be able to know what to do and how to get there. And so we have this thing called the 2020 Vision Guide, which we do in workshops and for corporate engagements and such. And we help companies and individuals get crystal clear on what they want and what they need to achieve. And so I think once you have that as an entrepreneur, then it's so much easier to say, well, geez, you know, if I want to achieve this in sales, I have to put in this kind of time. And then from there, when we start and kind of transition into the marketing of a business or a coach, is you have to get really clear on what I would call an elevator pitch, or some people call positioning statement. To me, they're two in the same. And why this is important is because who you are as a business is everything. So if I go to your website, I need to very quickly and very easily understand what you do and the problem you solve. So when we talk about positioning, you had mentioned there's a lot of coaches. Well, I happen to be a marketing coach. So if you were to type that into Google, you would find, I'm not kidding you, probably 3 million people who do something pretty close to what I do. And so you would have a hard time differentiating unless you go to my site and you say, oh, Chris, what does he do? He's a marketing coach. And then if you saw that, you'd say, so what? Like there's a million of you. And I could say something like, oh, marketing coach, guaranteed to make things easy. So what? So what I did was I kind of iterated on this for a very long time, but I came up with something that I think is pretty good. Basically, when I introduce myself or when I talk about my services, I tell people this. My name is Chris Burns. I'm a marketing coach and consultant. I specialize in helping small to medium-sized businesses. And my big thing is I make marketing so easy it's fun again, so easy you'll have no excuses. And I have some different iterations of what I say, and maybe I use that in social media, my website, my profile. I have 3 or 4 different ways of saying that and positioning it so that people understand the thing that I do or the problem, pain that I solve, because ultimately people are looking for someone like me because they don't like marketing. It's been difficult. It's been time consuming. And so my tagline is marketing doesn't have to be difficult, time consuming, or expensive to be effective. So when you see my website, when you see my content, when you it happens to also be the title of my book, you will immediately know the thing that I do. And that is the problem for a lot of coaches is, what is it that you coach? Well, I'm a business coach. Well, what the hell does that mean? And they say, well, I help people generate more sales. Okay, well, how? Because there's a million coaches. That doesn't mean anything to me. So we often talk about these titles or business names or taglines, but that ultimately what you're doing is you're just making yourself a commodity and you're blending in rather than rising above the noise. So you have to really position yourself as being what I would call, air quotes, unique, different, not better, not best, not best in class, because the consumers get to choose that, not you. But you have to really point out how you are different, because only then can you be better than the competition. And so in my space, coaches, consultants, there's a ton of us. You have to point out how you're different, and only then can your marketing start to become effective and work for you.
I have a question for you, because you are a marketing coach. How crucial is it to, when you cold pitch somebody, to know who you're pitching before you pitch them?
Well, I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people make, and I've made it. I know a lot of people have. I've made it many times, is you should probably never do that. I don't care how good you are at sales or how good your product or service is. I think it's really important to know the person you're pitching and also know if it's the right time or the right person, because if you did your research, you may have found this pitch is probably a waste of my time. You could determine that, and therefore you could save your time or save yourself the embarrassment of the no. So one of the things that I try to do, unless someone asks for it, I might give them a pitch, but I often still defer to this. Tell me a little bit more about your business. Tell me a little bit more about what you're struggling with, like, or what do you need help with? And I tend to ask about 5 or 6 questions before then I even go into making recommendations. And even then, I may make some recommendations to the person. And then what they'll say is they're like, geez, this marketing thing is, I don't want to do any of that. I'm just going to hire you to do it. And then they'll ask me, so tell me more about what this costs. And so my approach has always been this. Whether it's social media or marketing, I want to add so much value to your news feed that as a byproduct, when you have a need or want for a marketing coach or consultant, you might reach out to me. So that way I'm not really pitching you. You're asking me what my services cost. Or I want to be able to ask enough questions to demonstrate that I care. I want to be able to offer some solutions. Doesn't mean it's my solution of hiring me, but offer some tips and some advice so that they know that I'm not here to just take their money, that I really am a resource for them. I want to educate and empower them because, as I tell people, I want you to fire me in 6 months. You don't have to hire me in perpetuity to be successful. I really want you to be successful regardless. And so I think if you take the right approach, eventually they're going to say, hey, well, how does this work? Tell me more. Like, give me your pricing. And to me, if that's the case, if you've done that, you're not really pitching them because they're asking you for the pitch or for the quote. And I think to me, it's all about relationship building. Take every opportunity you have to build a relationship, to build the know, like, and trust factor. And at a certain point, when they want it, they will ask for your business. And that's what I've tried to do as much as possible. But the hard part is there are a lot of people listening to the show, not a lot, but some, who are desperate for business. And if you are desperate and you come off that way, people may not even ask you to pitch. They may not want it because they're not going to want to work with you. So we definitely want to be conscious that we're not coming off like that.
And please do not use templates.
Yeah, don't do that.
I have literally on average 25 marketers a day with the same cookie cutter template telling me how they can go from 0 to 25K in 6 weeks or, some outrageous number. And then at the very end, at the very bottom, what do you do again? It's like, A, if you knew what I did, you'd know you can't do that. It's not possible because I don't have the bandwidth to work with that many clients. But 2, I work in autism. Families don't have that kind of money.
Right. Yeah.
And
hey, Mary.
I always send everything back and says, read my profile.
Mary, it's Country.
Hi, Country.
I wanted to high five. You say you're Mr. Burns, Chris?
Yeah.
That's Chris. Well, I like to high five you right there, too, because when it comes – I'm sorry, I'm outside. The car's going by. When you're asking those questions, again, asking the right questions is most imperative to me when it comes to being able to help somebody. If you don't know where, or especially what area people need help in, it's kind of like, I don't want to throw religious people under the bus, but I hate when people come up to me and try to give me Bible scriptures when a scripture is not what I need. And if you're asking people questions about their business and you become more familiar, they will actually tell you what you need to do, just like you said, Chris, tell you what your pitch and what area you need to talk to them in. And then all of a sudden, I'll make this short, it feels right, I said feels, right up front that you're relating to them, and then you can build a relationship, because if it comes right down to it, people are going to only deal with who they like. And if you can't relate to the person that you're conversating with, you're not going to get the deal. I'll stop right there.
Excellent point. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And every industry is going to maybe have a different set of questions, and every conversation might be a different set of questions. But if you have the approach to learn first and inquire, really want to help them, and when I say help, I don't mean sell. But if you go in saying I want to help, the only way you can do that is by asking, I'm going to say at least a half dozen questions. And there are a couple of really good books like The Coaching Habit or I think it's called The Advice Trap. Those are two phenomenal books that you can read that are really actually phenomenal reads. They're really fun to read. And you really understand the process of learning about the business, because once you have that information, you will say, look, this person, it's not worth a pitch because they're not the right fit for me. But if you turned around and said, hey, Jim, I don't think my business is the right fit, but I do actually know someone you could work with who's a coach who'd be a much better fit for you. Guess what's going to happen? In the near future, Jim is going to say, hey, you know what? That Chris Burns guy, he's really awesome. Like, he didn't even pitch me. And as soon as I know someone who needs that service that he offers, I'm going to go recommend him to 5 or 6 people. He's going to sing my praises because guess what? I helped him in a way that he didn't expect, and he appreciates the heck out of me for not trying to sell him. If you do that to 5 or 6 people, don't look at it as business lost. Look at it as now you've got 5 advocates who are going to refer you business. And I there's probably a few people listening to me that think I'm crazy for saying that, but I'm telling you, I've seen it. It's happened to me. You will get so much business as a byproduct. People say I've got word of mouth and referrals. That's how they've done it, by turning down the right people, but they did so by helping them in a different way that they probably wouldn't have imagined would come back to pay dividends 6 months, 2, 3 years down the road.
High five again. I'm in your cheering corner today. I'm over here like a cheerleader with pom-poms because, again, being able to hear what they need and say, well, I don't really do plumbing. I'm an electrician. By being able to stay honest, stay true, and the word that most people are staying away from nowadays is being able to identify with somebody that has integrity, because certain things can be learned and certain things, but you as a business/life coach, if you have no integrity, people will read right through it right away, right up front. And then again, closing right there, you just showed me that you really did have more in mind than me just getting a paycheck from you. You really were authentic, organic, and wanted to help me by giving me sources. And it's not just a cliche. It's not what you know. It's who you know. What if one of those persons that you introduced them to was super speedy Mary Stanley, and that marketing that you couldn't do, she put them in 90-something countries? Stop right there, Chris.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I would say that I've been in businesses or in business myself where earlier in my career I would take whatever business I could get because I didn't know any different. And what happened with those clients that were like, you know, I could help you, I don't know if it's the right fit, is those are the clients that you have to put more time and effort into, and not in a good way, like burnout, like I'm trying to put a square peg in a round hole. Like I could do that. Like, yeah, why don't I do that? And then next thing you know, half of your clientele are people who are, air quotes, not a great fit. I mean, they're an okay fit. And next thing you know, you're putting in extra time. They're asking for more. They're taking advantage of you. Doesn't mean they're bad people, but you've created this ecosystem that all of a sudden work's not fun. You're getting burned out. And so you should approach it with integrity, because I do believe that if you're out to help people, that good karma will come back. And I've seen it happen firsthand. But we forget that we're going to do this unjust pain to ourselves. And nobody wants to be stuck in that hamster wheel where they're doing work for not enough money, for people who don't appreciate their services, or things that are maybe a little bit outside their comfort zone or their skill set. That's just not a model for good, sustainable business. And I think you got to have the right approach when you're working with people. And I don't even think of it as selling, because if you're there to help people and they want to work with you and you want to work with them, that's a good fit. That's good business. And that'll happen the more you practice this framework.
So what is a good starting place when you're starting a business, you're trying to get yourself out there? So many people have a great idea, want to start a business. They start a business, but they fail because they don't have all the framework together. How do you help those that are struggling?
Yeah, I think when you start, and I'll kind of try to treat this as a two-part question. I think when you're starting, a couple things that I learned that was really important. When I got married, I started what I would call my first real business. And my wife said to me, she's like, hey, I can support anything, but, before you go and put a bunch of your time and money into this business, that'll potentially take away from our family and everything else. It's like, I just need to know that you're setting yourself up for success. And I'm like, well, what does that even mean? And she's like, well, do you have a strategy? Do you have like a plan or, financial projections? And I was like, no, I'm an entrepreneur. I just do things by the seat of my pants. And then she's like, I don't care, but, before you do anything, I think it's really important that you follow this. And you just, you have a plan and you have financial projections, because only then will you know, what success looks like. Can you hold yourself accountable? So I was like, okay. And I did it. And I did about a year's worth of research, because I invested a lot of my own money and time. And looking back, that was the difference between all my little micro businesses, this online, passive income things that I was doing before. That was, at a very small level, was successful. I was never able to scale it, and I never had longevity with any of those things. But now, if you fast forward, 9 years later, that business is still around. It's still very profitable, has really good revenue. And a lot of that, I pay tribute to my wife for making me get very specific with a game plan, very specific with financials. And I took it seriously for the first time. And so as part of that, what I tell people is you have to have a strategy. Now, if I zoom out, I've been an entrepreneur for probably 15 plus years. And what I can tell you is that, especially being in the marketing space, I've talked to thousands of businesses, and the number one reason why a lot of them come up short or fail or their marketing sucks is because they don't have a strategy. They don't have a plan at all. And the thing that I would argue is, if you look at any professional sports coach, NFL, NBA, soccer, whatever, they show up to every game and every season with a plan based on the team they have, the skill set of that team, the weaknesses, the strengths, etc. And so if you have a plan, only then do you know what good looks like. Only then do you have a North Star. Do you know what you should or shouldn't be doing and where you should be focusing your time every day? And if you don't have a game plan, well, you certainly don't have goals, because if you had a goal, you would then have an implementation plan in your strategy. You would then know what you're measuring, how to measure, you're reporting, you're analyzing, you're spending time in the numbers. And so to me, I think when we talk about getting started or failing, a lot of it has to do with having a game plan. But more importantly than that, I advise a lot of people on this strategy stuff. The thing I would tell people is I've spent a lot of time, and I've also been paid a lot of money to build strategies for companies. And the thing I found is that unless it's simple, like really, really simple and easy, like 1 or 2 pages at most, it never gets implemented. And so that means basically that your strategy is completely useless. It was a waste of your time unless you have an implementation plan. So to me, it is just important to ensure, how are we going to implement these tactics, these strategies? How are we going to achieve these goals? What do I need to do on a daily or weekly basis to make sure that I win the week and eventually win the month? And so only then will you know for sure you are not only going to hit your goals, but you're going to crush your goals. And that is the biggest difference between good and great, or failing and success. And to me, it's a couple of things. It's time management, it's calendar management, it's implementation. And this is so easy. It's so elementary, but yet so many people overlook it. And the reason why is because they don't have a plan. They're just every single day they show up to work and they're here, they're there, they're left, they're right. They don't have any rhyme or reason because, again, they're not strategic. And so to me, strategy is everything. If you're getting started, strategy is where you start. If you're failing, you go back to strategy. So, regardless of what side of the question I answer this from, I think strategy is the foundation of your business. If you're going to build a home, you build it on a solid foundation. Same thing with your business. You build it on a solid foundation, which is strategy, game plan, implementation.
Chris, I got one for you.
Shoot.
I'm a country boy. What they used to tell us is you put the cart before the horse. Hypothetically speaking, let's say that I'm talking about myself that own a business and had it for years, but I needed your help. But what I want you to kind of elaborate on a little bit is the difference, because I heard all ideas are good ideas, but not all ideas are good plans. So a lot of people have great ideas, but I don't know if we really understand the difference between the idea and the way you've been running your business versus a written plan. Can you help us out right there? Because some people have good ideas, but it's not working, and they think the ideas that they have are great ideas, which they are, but tell me the difference between an idea and a plan.
Oh, I love this. Really, really good stuff. So I would back up and say, I don't know that all ideas are good ideas. And so I want to iterate on that is I was talking to someone on a podcast recently about how do you validate an idea? Because if you're an entrepreneur like we all are, we have ideas literally every single day. And some of us who are super creative like me, I might have 15, 20 ideas a day. And that's both a blessing and a curse. And why I say that is because I've had some that I've acted on that have been a total waste of my time and money. And the reason why I say that is I didn't validate to know if it worked. And so you have to do a couple things. If you have an idea, whether it be for a product, a service, a business, whatever, it's really important that you don't act immediately on it. Now, in some cases, if you know for sure this is just a unicorn, be my guest. But I always say proceed with caution, and here's why. When I started my first business, I took over a year to launch it. And one of the reasons is because this. I had the money to do it, but I did have to save. I didn't want to mortgage my future. I didn't want to take a loan. So I needed to position myself and our family such that I could afford the loss, right? I wasn't going to leverage myself. So that's number one. Number two, if you really take the time to put together a plan and the financial projections, then you can say, like, look, if I sell this much on a conservative level or this much on an aggressive level, this is what I can make in revenue. This is what I can make in profit. I also think there needs to be a demand and a market for it. And I don't mean like, oh, power washing or, oh, a chiropractor. If the market is super saturated, it may not be a good idea. It really may not. So you need to know, is it super saturated, yes or no? Do I have passion for this? If I'm not passionate about it, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to work. Next one is you need to either have knowledge and or experience. I would not advise anyone going into a business in which they have no experience or knowledge. So for me, I talk about restaurants a lot. I love food. I love cooking. I'm very fascinated by the business. I've done a lot of research, but I know that I've never worked in a restaurant. I've never worked in a bar. I have no experience, nor do I have any business entering the industry as is, because I'd be setting myself up for failure. This is usually people who have success are usually people who've worked in the space for a longer period of time. And so I think we need to work on this. We need to talk to people to say, hey, if I started a restaurant, even if it's air quotes different and unique, is there a palette for this? Am I going to be, pricing myself out of the market? Am I going to struggle with hiring? Like where am I going to have struggles and issues? Where are my strengths and weaknesses? And if I'm going to have those weaknesses, can I find someone who can help me with those strengths. And so those are a couple things that you need to look into before you go any further. Now, the difference between an idea and a strategy, to answer your question, is they're wildly different. An idea is like I'm sitting in a bar with my friend having a beer, and we have this wonderful idea for a business. I write it down on a napkin. I put it in my notes app on my phone. That is nothing more than a concept, and a concept is not a strategy. A strategy looks very different. A strategy is once I have the idea, I then put pen to paper and I outline a bunch of things. A strategy should have some of these components. And again, I'm going to leave it up to the person because your strategy template may be really good. Mine may be very good, but they both may look different. So the first thing I start off with is a bit of a mission statement, and not the one on your website. I want to know the purpose, the why behind the business. Not that we're going to start another fast food burger chain, because believe me, there's plenty of those. But if you were to, what is going to make this thing totally different? That's going to flip the industry upside down. Next, I want you to have a vision for what this could be down the road, because we don't just start a business to start a business. We hope that down the road 5 years from now that there's an iteration. It's different from what it is today, hopefully. Most businesses evolve over time. Even if you're McDonald's, they've evolved over time. Next, I want to know, what kind of budget do you have? What are we investing into this? What does an implementation plan look like? So what's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3? And I'm not talking about like 10 years out. I'm talking about this year and next year. Also, we want to make financial projections, because if this is a brand new business, I need to know what good looks like. What do I need to achieve to not just get to break-even point, but to get to profitability? Because we can't operate on break-even for very long. You're going to end up shutting down. You also, if you're going to start a big business, you're probably going to need some credit with the bank. So do we have credit? Can we get credit? If so, how much? We need a bit of a marketing plan in there as well, so that if you were to show this strategy to me, and there are other things, but for sake of time, we'll leave it at that. I need to be able to say, okay, as your friend, as your business advisor, your confidant, I need to be able to poke some holes in this and understand what is your goal? What is your objective? Is it realistic? Is it not realistic? What are you going to be doing? What are you going to be focusing on an everyday basis? And if you don't have that, it's going to be just throwing things against the wall, and that is not a recipe for success. So it really needs to be your North Star. It really needs to guide you and direct you and be realistic and have goals. But an idea is just a singular concept with no merit and no basis to it. And a strategy is the ideation for me to fully understand the business, the problem it solves, and how you're going to get to where you want to go.
Gary, I'm going to hush after this. I got one more hot question while you're right there, Chris.
Let's go.
Because while you was talking, you said, tell me your why. A lot of old school coaches used to always, that was the number one question. Why are you doing this? Are you then going to hear whether people are doing it because their passion is hidden in there somewhere, their purpose-driven life is hidden in there somewhere, or somebody just wants to be into a business because they just want to make money. So I like when you said, tell me your why. Actually, tell me the end of your story at the beginning of your story so I can really help you get to your destination. Stop right there, Chris.
Yeah, so I'd say this. If you are in business just to make money, that's okay. I've been on networking calls where people say, hey, just say it out loud. Like my goal is to provide for my family and make a living. That is okay. No one's going to fault you for that. But if you have a really good why, and I'll tell you mine, and it's not to help people, it's not to motivate people, it's not to be an advocate for small businesses. I'll tell you a reason why. I worked in an agency, a social media agency, that I still to this day I have a lot of respect for. And what I saw from competitors in the market was this. There were a lot of small businesses, and I grew up in a small business. I have a lot of friends that have small businesses, and I found that agencies got so expensive that a lot of small businesses couldn't afford to pay them, or they would leverage their future. to the point where it's like, I guess I could afford this if it works. And then they work with them for 3 months, and that's not enough time, and they have to fire them. So it's like, that didn't work. Okay, what do I do next? I've just really leveraged my budget for the year. I've also seen that some agencies, not all, some, will make marketing so complicated and difficult that small businesses feel like, well, geez, I'll never figure this out on my own. I have to hire you. And that's not the case. I've seen some agencies make their marketing services not very transparent. So in other words, they're not results oriented. You pay them, they'll provide you a service regardless of what the outcome is. They don't really share the analytics because maybe the campaign's not working super well. And so they kind of hide behind just a monthly bill. And the small business is like, well, I don't get it. Like, what am I paying for? And then they end up leaving. So I see a lack of transparency. I see it being very expensive. I see it being very confusing. And I don't see a lot of agencies that are there to really advocate, like really help them understand. So I started my business so that I can truly help them. It's to be transparent, to be results oriented, and to be affordable. Because I saw this as being a massive problem for small businesses, not being able to afford a reliable professional in the marketing, coaching, and consulting space. That's my why. Now, there's more to it. Yeah, I want to make money. Yeah, I want to build a reputation and be really successful. But I saw there being a need in this space. And I'm not saying all agencies are bad. I also want to say that in full disclosure. So, what is your why? And sometimes we have to noodle on that, because if I can articulate that really easily on my website, I think more people might want to work with me.
I'm a strong believer in you follow the mission or your why, the money follows. The money will come. And so many businesses get so tunnel visioned on the money aspect of everything, they forget the why. And they'll change their messaging on a regular basis to what's hot on the market, or they'll make stupid TikTok videos to get the following, the thinking they're going to get the clients in. Because they're looking for that instant, easy button. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, there is no easy button. I mean, it can be easy, but here's the thing. Only when you have a strategy, and I'm going to kind of reverse engineer this. I have an easy button on the back cover of my book. And then people say, well, Chris, you say there's no easy button. And I say, yeah, that's true. There is no easy button. There's no easy way to be successful. But you have to put in the time and the effort in the beginning to build the foundation. That is, build a strategy, start stacking daily victories, and climb that mountain one step at a time. There's no cheat code to get up the mountain. You have to take it step by step. You stack the daily victories. All of a sudden, you get there. But that takes a lot of time and effort year over year. And once you get there, you're like, wow, I guess this is pretty easy. Well, that's because you put the time and the effort to build the foundation, to iterate, to evolve, to follow a plan, to execute on a regular basis over and over. Even when there's days you're like, I don't know if this is working. You're like, I'm going to stick to the plan. I'm going to stick to the plan. Or I'm going to evolve the plan a little bit. This is working, but this isn't. When you're consistent and strategic, things work. When you're not, things don't work. That's not a sustainable model. And when they start working, it's like, you know what? Maybe this wasn't so hard after all. You know what? This is kind of easy. But it always feels hard when things aren't working, and that's because we've become a bit lazy, some of us. And at times, I get there too. I feel entitled, like, oh, I'm posting stuff on Instagram every day and no one's responding. Well, posting on Instagram is only one component of 36 things we should be doing. So, I mean, you can't rely on just social media.
Chris, I got a subliminal curveball for you.
Let's
because
go.
When we set down goals usually say, what do I want and when do I want it by? But here's the crazy, tricky part, and I'm going to drop the ball right in your lap. When we set goals for ourselves and we don't reach that goal at the deadline, at the date, your 30, your 45, your 60-day goal, sometimes it's hard for people to understand when you're first getting started in your business that your dates may not co-align with the spiritual dates, because you have your plan and God has his plan. But what happens when you're working with somebody and they have calendar dates and their goals are not lining up with the dates and the time limit that they put on it? Does that make sense, Chris, what I'm asking?
Yeah. I think things will start to feel like they're aligning if you do have them in your calendar. That's one thing that I see a lot of people don't do, is they don't have not just the goal in their calendar, but what is the daily habit you need to achieve the goal? The daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it is. And some people need that reminder that, hey, like every Tuesday and Thursday, I'm going to have a half hour blocked out to create my content for social media. Or every Monday and Friday, I'm going to download my Facebook Insights or my Insights from Hootsuite to understand what social media content's working or where I'm going right, where I'm going wrong. Those are the habits. But I'm going to take one step back even further. Most goals, and I'm going to make up this statistic because I don't actually know the number, but I'm going to say from what I've seen, it's about 75% of the goals made are not achieved. And why? In my opinion, it is that 75% are arbitrary goals. They're made up. So I talk to people about this all the time. And I'll ask them, I say, Chris, well, I had a goal of 12% more sales this year and I fell short. Or 15% more website traffic, I fell short. And I said, okay, where did you get that number? How did you come up with that? Well, I Googled it and it said 12% more sales is good. And, you know, if I post more on social media, I thought I could get 15%. And I said, okay, based on what? Well, that's what Google said. That's what ChatGPT said. I said, okay, well, what is it based on? And they can't answer me because it's falsified. It's made up. So the only way you can have a real goal is if you look at the historical data. If you look at 2 or 3 years of sales and you say, guess what, we're going into quarter 4. Every time around this year, I have $50,000 in sales. Okay. Well, this year, I hired a marketing person. I now have a $5,000 marketing budget and a $2,000 advertising budget. Based on that, I feel we can increase it by 12%. Okay. Well, based on historical data, and now that you have these new things, that would be an intelligent goal. That'd be what I call a SMART goal. But there's more to a SMART goal than that. So based on time, what I'm going to say is that most goals are arbitrary. They're just pulled out of the sky, and they're based on nothing, based on maybe what you want. But if that's how you're creating goals, you are going to have a very hard time not only reaching the goal, but crushing the goal. And so a couple things need to happen is you need to follow the SMART framework. You need to have historical data. What is it based on? You need to have most of us, not all of us, but most of us need to have some daily habits and routines on our calendar, some reminders that, hey, by the way, better get going because there's this goal you're going to try to reach by end of next week. And if we keep those in front of us, because I always tell my wife, you know, if something's out of sight, it's out of mind for me. I need to be able to have those daily reminders. I need to write them down, need to have them in my journal, need to have them in my calendar, because then I can't say, oh, I forgot. Oh, I got busy. Well, no, you didn't. Because if you see it every day, you know what you're focusing on. If it's based on something, if it has the SMART framework, it will likely happen. So we talk about some alignments with God. I do believe in that to a certain degree. But if you do the things I talked about, it's going to feel like you got a whole hell of a lot of alignment in the world. But most people don't put the time and effort in to do those things.
No, and that's the scary part about it is, you know, there's so many great ideas out there. And so many people that have that passion, but they don't put the extra needed to be successful.
I think you cut out there. I might have missed what you were saying.
No, there's so many businesses out there that are, you know, have that potential to be great and be the next great thing. but they don't have that ambition to, or the know-how or the motivation to put that extra effort in.
Yeah, you got to be willing to put in a lot of the hard work in the beginning. And if you already have a day job, that might mean putting in a lot of hours in the evening, on the weekends. And that's why I said I think it's so important to have a passion and have experience and knowledge in the industry that you'll be starting or, working in this business or trying to grow. And even if it is your thing, it may require the extra time in the short term, but you take some short-term losses for the long-term gain. So if you're not willing to put in extra time, if you're not willing to go through some struggles, maybe to leverage some of your time, some of your nightlife or Netflix time, it's not going to work. And as much as we talk a lot about the hustle without the burnout, when we're starting things or we're going through some adversity, sometimes we got to put the extra time in. Sometimes we've got to ask for help. And so I think today more than ever is, things can be easy, but we have to build the infrastructure, or as I talk about, the foundation. And if you're going to, continue to do things without a strategy, it's going to continue to be a struggle. I know no businesses, actually. I don't know one business that is wildly successful, that is wildly profitable and or sustainable, that doesn't have a strategy that's being utilized and an implementation plan. And so to me, if you can continue to stack those victories daily and weekly, you're going to win the month, you'll eventually win the year. But you got to put the time in to build the foundation. Otherwise, that house that you're trying to build is going to fall apart.
Chris, I got one more question for you, too. Go ahead, Mary.
So one more quick question for you. So many people try to talk like in scientific terms and explain what they're doing. How important is it to talk like a regular person or market yourself to where everybody understands you?
Oh, wonderful question. I'm so glad you asked this. This is something that I think just everyone needs a good reminder on. And I've learned this the hard way, is that I don't ever claim to be the smartest marketing person or the person who's the best at marketing. But I will say that oftentimes, because I love learning about it and reading about it, I use a lot of technical terms and jargon. And so often I don't even know I'm doing it. But I had a conversation, a couple of presentations back several years ago, where I basically did like marketing for beginners. And I never had so many people tell me how wonderful that was. And I basically got my strategy down to one page, and I called it Marketing So Easy It's Fun Again. And that became the title of my book and a lot of the framework for what I do today. And that was a light bulb for me that helped me realize that people want things to be easy, because when they're easy, they're fun. And in business, when things are fun, it's because we're generating results. But I'll tell you what, the most effective marketing campaigns are simple. The most effective businesses are simple. The more complicated something is, the confused mind says no. And I'm going to repeat that because it's very important. The confused mind says no. So if I'm on your website and you use these big words, big jargon, even if I kind of understand what they mean, I'm not impressed by that. I want to know very simply, easily, and quickly the problem you solve, the thing that you do, kind of why you're different, or all three of those combined in one very short statement. Don't make me read a lot. Don't make me scroll a lot. Don't make me watch a 15-minute video. People want concise. And if you can make it simple and effective, the most powerful messages are the ones that are short. You can make a very powerful message with fewer words. The more words you use, the more you dilute the impact of that message. And that is a bit of a marketing hack, whether we're talking about social media posts, we're talking about videos, taglines. Simple is the most effective and powerful. And so that is something I try to convey. It's why it's the title of my book, Marketing So Easy It's Fun Again. It's because people want easy. It's that simple.
All right, Chris, my last question before you run out of time here. I wrote down a word that I heard you use at least 5 times since you've been on the show, but you was using it in a different format. You used the word leverage, but we always say that there's nothing new, and you're getting in a business that there's thousands of other people do. Can you give me the other side on what leverage would mean to you versus competing with somebody that might already be doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so if you don't position yourself as different, or you don't have a different type of a service, you will be competing with everybody. Now, in a roundabout way, people will compare you with the right competitors or the wrong competitors. If they don't understand you, what you do, or how you're different, you are technically competing with them. But if you position yourself right, you'll look like you're in a class all by yourself with, air quotes, no competition. So when I talk about leveraging, it is I'm a marketing coach consultant. I could offer social media, website design, but I'm not really adequately leveraging my time. I'm not properly leveraging my worth or my value. And so what could I do? I could create a very unique offering, or at least make it sound more unique. And I could maybe offer things like a guarantee or a promise that my competitors just won't. I can offer to be, more transparent. I can offer to be faster, but you obviously don't want to leverage being the cheapest, because then it's a race to the bottom. And so I think take your strength and leverage it against the competition. And so what I would do is I'd scan the industry and say, okay, what are 3 or 4 things that my competitors aren't doing or are unwilling to do? And I gave you a bunch before. To me, it was transparent. It was price. It was kind of that coaching and consulting, and then being results oriented. So I'm always here to educate and empower. I want my clients to know. And those are 4 things that I could put into a positioning statement to leverage my skill set and my business, and to kind of put myself in a class of its own. And so to me, it's getting back to understanding what are the competitors, because whether I like it or not, some people are going to say, well, Chris, so you're competing with an agency, or you're competing with this business or that business. Well, what can all of them not do? I write those down, and I start to iterate on what I can do to offer my clients the best or most unique type of service possible. Hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, you'd appreciate it, Chris.
You're welcome.
All right. So as we wind down the clock, Chris, what are the most important things that listeners should know about marketing? And I want to thank you again for being here today.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I would say that, genuinely, I think marketing can be easy, and the people who do it strategically and consistently will tell you that it is fun, and it's fun because it's relatively easy. But the people who will tell you they hate marketing or marketing sucks are the people who they're constantly trying different things. They're not strategic. They're not dedicated. They're not consistent. And so there's a very stark contrast there. And so what I would tell you is that, I can promise to make marketing pretty easy for you, but you have to get strategic. You also, my pro tip is that if you look at your marketing right now, outside of strategy, make a list of what's working and what's not working. And when I say that, you can go through and self-audit your own social media. You can audit your own website and just check down like, hey, how come no one's clicking this button? How come no one's inquiring about this service or buying this product? Well, if no one's doing that, it's not working. If you're posting videos that are getting a lot of engagement, but your graphic design posts where you're trying to sell your services aren't working, put that in the not working and put the other one in the working category. And all of a sudden, you kind of go through and you're like, whoa, okay, these 3 things are working really well or better than average, and these 3 things really suck. So what I would do then is I would eliminate those 3 things that suck. Stop doing them in any capacity and double down on what's working. Also, since you have eliminated 3 things you're not doing, try to do 3 new things. Maybe it's starting a YouTube channel. Maybe it's starting a podcast. Maybe it's TikToks or YouTube Shorts. Start some new tactics and behaviors, because if we do the same stuff over and over and over, half of it works, half of it doesn't. That's not a recipe for success or sustainability. That's how we get in the hamster wheel. That's what leads to burnout. So we've got to continue to iterate and evolve. Otherwise, we get stale and people get fatigued with our message. And again, we're in the same old hamster wheel of looking for clients, but yet nobody wants the service we're offering. And then finally, find a way to continue to iterate and evolve your offer. It's got to be compelling, and you've got to be different from the competition. Just saying we're better, we're best is not compelling enough for me. That's what I got.
Mary, make sure and give Chris my number. I got 2 people here in Atlanta, Chris, that I can introduce you to that need your assistance, that need your help.
Well, thank you kindly. I really appreciate that.
All right. Thank you for joining us today on this episode of Hometown Heroes. Join us again next Monday at noon Eastern Time. And join us tomorrow for Travel Tuesday and all about how travel can help with your wealth and your health. Remember, health is your first wealth. So have a good day, have a good night, and we'll see you back here tomorrow at noon Eastern. Bye for now. Thanks again, Chris, for joining us.
Thank you.